She demanded sacrifice from the villagers, one newborn baby every new moon. Angering Ajasha would unleash her fury upon them all. So the ritual continued, generation after generation. The villagers' numbers dwindled as Ajasha claimed her due. Mothers wept in despair, fathers raged in silence, but no one dared challenge the mermaid. Many years ago, there was a small village nestled deep in the forests of northern Nigeria called Shanze. Shanze was a simple farming village, where the people lived off the bounty of the land. They grew yams, cassava, and millet. They raised goats and chickens. The people of Shanze were poor but content with their simple lives. At the edge of the village flowed a wide, slow-moving river. The river provided the villagers with fish and fresh water. It also contained a powerful spirit, a mermaid named Ajasha. Ajasha was not like the mermaids of fairy tales. She was dark and twisted, with a heart full of malice. The mothers of Shanze learned to dread the birth of their children, for they knew one would be doomed to die. On the eve of the sacrifice, Ajasha would emerge from the river to claim her prize. The villagers, paralyzed with fear, could do nothing but watch as the mermaid's long, spindly arms reached out and snatched the wailing infant from its crib. With a final scream of delight, Ajasha would drag the baby down into the murky depths, not to be seen again. In return for their offering, Ajasha allowed the village to prosper. She brought them rain for their crops and kept disease from their livestock. As much as the villagers feared and hated her, they knew they could not defy the mermaid. Angering Ajasha would unleash her fury upon them all. So the ritual continued, generation after generation. The villagers' numbers dwindled as Ajasha claimed her due. Mothers wept in despair, fathers raged in silence, but no one dared challenge the mermaid. Shanze was bound by fear and tradition. Until one day, a stranger came to the village. He was an older man with a bald head and piercing eyes. He wore simple homespun robes and carried only a walking staff. The villagers did not know what to make of him when he strode casually into their village. "Greetings, friends," he said with a disarming smile. "My name is Ike." The villagers stared and murmured amongst themselves. Ike was an odd name, and they had never seen this man before. Where did he come from? "Pardon my intrusion," Ike continued. "I am a wanderer, traveling from village to village. If you permit me, I would be grateful for a place to rest for a few days before continuing my journey." The headman came forward and introduced himself. "You may stay if you wish," he said cautiously. "But life here is difficult. Our village is cursed by an evil spirit who demands sacrifice. It is not safe for outsiders." Ike listened carefully as the headman explained Ajasha and the rituals she forced upon them. He stroked his chin thoughtfully, but did not seem surprised or frightened by the tale. "I understand," Ike said when the headman had finished. "But perhaps I may be of some help during my stay here. Spirits and curses are my areas of expertise." The villagers looked at him curiously, but said nothing more. They offered him a small hut at the edge of the village. Ike thanked them and retired for the evening. Over the next few days, Ike explored the village and spoke with the people. He was particularly interested in hearing about Ajasha and how she had terrorized Shanze for centuries. He asked many questions about her powers, the rituals she demanded, and what offerings the villagers made to appease her. At night, he was sometimes seen wandering down to the river and standing at its banks, gazing thoughtfully into the dark waters. The villagers left him alone, unsure what to make of the odd stranger in their midst. A week after Ike arrived, a pig farmer on the outskirts of the village welcomed his firstborn son into the world. As was their custom, the villagers kept vigil outside the family's hut and wept, for they knew the baby was destined to become Ajasha's next victim. On the eve of the full moon, the mother clutched her child to her breast and tried not to imagine the horror that awaited. The villagers gathered silently outside, holding torches that did nothing to lighten the gloom that had settled over Shanze. Suddenly, Ike came striding through the crowd. "Stay back," he commanded. "I will handle this." Before anyone could react, Ike strode to the river's edge. "Ajasha," he shouted into the night. "I am Ike, son of Orunmila. For too long you have preyed upon these people. Your reign of terror ends now." The villagers cried out in alarm. Had this stranger gone mad? To insult and challenge Ajasha so was suicidal. At first there was only silence. Then the waters began to churn wildly. A few shrieks split the air as Ajasha rose from the river, droplets scattering off her mossy hair and algae-covered skin. She bared her fangs at Ike and let loose an unearthly wail. Ike stood firm, unflinching.
raised his staff toward the heavens. Dark clouds gathered above him, crackling with lightning. "You dare defy me?" Ajasha cried. "I am power incarnate." "No," said Ike. "You are but a shadow, a phantom who feeds on the weakness of men. But shadows cannot survive the light." With that, Ike stamped his staff, and a bolt of lightning streaked from the sky, striking Ajasha in the chest. She let out an agonized scream as she exploded into a shower of palm beads and mud. The curse was broken. Ajasha was no more.
The villagers stared in disbelief. Then cries of joy began to rise as they realized they were finally free of the mermaid's evil. Ike let the darkness and clouds dissipate. He walked back to the gathered crowd. "Tonight, a cycle ends," he told them. "Ajasha's reign of blood is over. You never need fear her again." The village headman came forward and bowed low. "We are in your debt, Ike," he said. "However can we repay you?" Ike smiled and shook his head. "I desire no payment. As I said, I am but a wanderer. Consider it a parting gift." The next morning, as the village continued to celebrate their liberation, Ike gathered his belongings. The time had come for him to resume his travels. The villagers begged him to stay. "You are a hero," they cried. "Stay and let us honor you." But Ike was humble in victory. "The true heroes are those who endured," he said. "But now life begins anew for Shanze. My work here is done." And so the villagers sadly watched as their champion left quietly down the winding forest path. Before he disappeared from view, Ike turned and called back to them one last time. "Remember me not, but never forget your freedom." The tale of the cursed village and the mermaid Ajasha faded into legend. The village prospered, as new generations were finally able to live without fear. Only the eldest villagers remembered the stranger who had saved them all. When asked, they would look into the distance with a smile. "Ike," they would say. "He was the first."